Welcome back, and joining me for an analysis of the day's markets action is Stephen Schultz from Momentum Securities. Thank you so much for your time, Stephen. It's been quite a ride, quite a roller coaster ride for markets, and particularly the rand since Trump's election victory. We're also seeing really the rand still quite weak against the US dollar, around 18 rand 20 or so. But I'm sure also Jerome Powell's comments haven't helped, have they?
Absolutely not. So it does feel like the week has been an America first trade. And with that, everyone else left out in the cold, including the South African rand. So the South African rand, unfortunately, on the back foot. I think consensus is it is oversold, but it can remain oversold for some time. And we're seeing an exceptionally strong US dollar, which is largely off the back of Donald Trump, president-elect, soon to be in the White House. And to date, we've seen the vast majority of policies from Donald Trump and his campaigning kind of being inflationary in nature, which is causing concern for the Federal Reserve, Powell in particular. And I think even just yesterday, his hawkish comments suggesting that he's in no rush to cut interest rates. So quite a big move on the market. I mean, prior to his comments, there was about an 80% probability of a December rate cut. And after a few words, that trimmed right back to 55%, which just gives an indication of how much uncertainty is in the system at the moment.
I'm just wondering, because now Powell says that the U.S. is in no rush to cut interest rates, because, I mean, obviously we know that that also affects us as well, because you are in the middle of that interest rate cutting cycle. And considering where the rand is, do you think that this could also maybe pull back some of the expectations from Lesetja Kganyago to be aggressive on that front as well?
Undeniably so. I think whether we like it or not, South Africa does need to move in step with the likes of the Federal Reserve. And the reason being is if South Africa were to cut quite aggressively in the absence of the Federal Reserve doing the same, what you would see is a much weaker South African rand. And that filters through into inflation, and it kind of defeats the very purpose of cutting in the first place. The problem we face is, I think that it is going to be some time until we have certainty on what of Trump's campaign promises actually materialize into the US economy. But one thing's for sure, tax cuts, deregulation, and any sort of trade tiffs that could potentially take place between the US and China or anywhere else are all going to be inflationary in nature and could lead to a very sticky inflation dynamic in the US.
All right. Well, Stephen, today we are expecting a review from ratings agency S&P Global on South Africa's credit rating. What are the expectations there? Are they without nervousness?
Unfortunately, there isn't much expectation. I think one thing that market consensus and globally consensus seems to reflect is that South Africa is on the mend and is in much better state than it was at the beginning of the year. Bit of a halo coming through from the GNU, of course, accelerated growth prospects, partly political and partly a result of more stable energy for the economy. But I think that we're very unlikely to see that optimism trickle through into definitive decisions today. My expectation would be a wait and see from the S&P.
All right. Well, Stephen, let's get on to company news. And really the big one today is Barloworld. We did see that stock surging 7% today. The company posted a further cautionary announcement. There have been many of those in the last couple of months. And they also posted a trading update. And judging by the share price reaction, I don't think that the markets reacted to the trading statement, but rather the cautionary announcement. Just talk us through the details of the potential buyout of Barloworld.
Couldn't agree more. I think, unfortunately for them, the trading, or maybe fortunately, because it wasn't the most pleasant trading statement, but completely overlooked by rumors. For a change, it's positive rumors, perhaps more than just rumors, but a work in progress. What we've seen is a Saudi consortium come forward and express interest in taking Barloworld, potentially private and off the JSE. Great news, I suppose, for Barloworld shareholders, and that we can see in the price reaction. Bad news for the JSE, which could potentially lose another listing. But I do believe this could be a serious expression of interest in that they are an existing shareholder. They've been accumulating shares for approximately 4 years already. And it gives quite a nice entry point for a Saudi consortium into the African continent. Also not a tremendously large deal for them.
Yeah.
16 billion rand, less than $1 billion US, should be quite easy to finance.
All right. Well, let us get to your stock pick for today, Stephen. What are you hanging your hat on?
My stock pick this evening is a little bit of a controversial one, given that the oil prices globally have been under quite an amount of pressure over the last few weeks. But I think with Trump soon to be back in the White House, one of these early priorities is very likely to be a deregulation of domestic energy and oil prices and industry. So I think as a result, we're probably unlikely to see a pickup in demand or even production for that matter. But we could see a very sizable shift in sentiment, which is severely depressed at the moment for fossil fuels in the US. And therefore, Cocoa Phillips is my stock pick for today. They've got a very strong balance sheet, great growth prospects, and a history of returning capital to shareholders. So a good one for me.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and just your insights on what has moved investors' money today and this week. Stephen, that was Momentum Securities' Stephen Schultz.